And when rapid speed down to 2500.
Give point wherever you reduce speed to 180.
BlackBox.
Hey gang, KP's BlackBox, Kenny Porter here. Thanks for joining us today. As you can see, we have our good friend Josh Morgan on with us, Primitive Woodsman. He was on with us about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's probably been 2 years since. Yeah,
it's been a while. Unfortunately, Josh is back with us now because he got stuck in a pretty tragic event, as I'm sure all of you are aware now, of Hurricane Helene. Is it Helen or Helene?
I think it's Helene.
Helene, yeah.
There's an E on the end there.
that biatch. So trying to make something light of something really bad. Josh,
right.
As many of you know, his business is based in North Carolina, specifically in Boone, North Carolina, which is right outside of Asheville. So I'm sure if you've been watching the news or you've had your antennas up at all, you know about what's going on in North Carolina. It's been horrible. So, Josh, first and foremost, we'll just say, man, we're praying for you guys, your family, your friends, and those that have tragically lost their lives to events that just nobody really, I think, had any forecast that it was going to be this bad for Asheville, did they?
No, not even close. I mean, they say, the hurricanes never make it to the mountains. The mountains break them up. It's fine. We've had plenty of hurricanes come up this way, and they're always they break up, and you get a lot of rain, but it's rain, and that's something that we're used to in this area. We're basically a temperate rainforest in this area, so we're not unfamiliar with rain, but rain to that degree, coupled with all of the wind and everything else, it was a pretty devastating mix of stuff. I'm in my shop. That's the only place I can get internet right now. You can see behind me even.
Holy cow. So that wall collapsed, and that's because a landslide of mud coming down behind your building?
Yeah. So I hadn't really known that the storm would be as bad as it was, as with most people that are out here. I woke up Friday morning and realized that it was pretty bad. I was at my house with my family. Luckily, we were all safe. There was no damage to our home. But the water was high and the wind was blowing and all of the trees were bent over and, whipping back and forth. And I knew that it was a, pretty serious situation. And the only thing that we could do is kind of sit tight and wait for the storm to pass. It took me about a day and a half before I could even get out of my neighborhood, where I live. You can see that hill falling down there.
Josh can't get but so far away from the shop where we'll lose his connection. So, but you're good right now. I mean, we've got a good strong connection with you, so no problem. Can you turn your phone all the way around, Josh, and or your computer, and let's hold
I'm on my phone here just to see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you can kind of orient everyone to where you are in relation to Asheville. So you're kind of on the outskirts of what bad stuff really happened, and I say that kind of with a forked tongue because I can see the devastation.
I would say, obviously Asheville got it a lot worse. The thing that we had in favor here in Boone is that we have high elevation. And we're at the headwaters for a lot of things. So I think my shop is around 3,200 feet in elevation, whereas most of Asheville is 1,000 feet or more below us.
So almost like a trough. They were caught in the downstream.
They had all that opportunity for the water to collect and make its way down there, and the water levels were definitely much higher there. the thing about here is that it's all really steep, so the water leaves really fast, but it does so really violently.
Yeah.
Because there's so much fall. I mean, even this stuff, like all of this hillside is caved in and fallen down and washed across the entire parking lot. But and that's the difference. I grew up at the coast and been through many hurricanes and floods and things of that nature. But when you're down at the coast and in a flat land, the water rises, but it moves, but not quite the same way it does here in the mountains, because we have all of this fall. When that water collects, if there's enough of it, it starts to move real fast and it gets violent. And the things that we've seen here are, I'd say the majority of devastation and damage that has taken place is similar to what's happened at my shop, with there being mudslides, trees falling, but really just whole hillsides slid off the base of the mountain and destroyed many homes, many people's businesses, many people's livelihoods. It's the worst natural disaster that I've ever witnessed personally. Even the first road that I could get to my shop through, because many of the main roads, half the reason I was late today was because they've had a road closed. Wow. And it's been in flux, but I had to take some back roads to get to the shop.
So main arteries that's coming through, road arteries that's coming through Asheville is what, 40?
Yeah, 40. There's 26.
26.
Which I think 26 is open. I'm not totally certain. I mean, Asheville is about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from here.
Okay. Jake, you bringing that map up on the screen here?
But I have some friends all of my friends that were in Asheville are not there anymore. They've evacuated or gone somewhere else. The damage was too great for them to stay. The amount of flood damage, the lack of power. I think they're doing a good job of getting some supplies in there now, but at one point, Asheville was completely cut off to anywhere in the outside world. Same with many of the communities that are up here. The only ways to get in and out was to fly. And so there's been a lot of civilian helicopter pilots, predominantly for the very initial response. It's been mostly, civilian pilots with helicopters that are from Wilmington or from any of the surrounding areas that have flown in, that have dropped supplies, that pulled people out of, homes in places where they were isolated and didn't have food or water or electricity, and with no hope of having those things restored. And it's been pretty incredible to see a lot of the community come together to make an effort to get those people out. Against all the odds, when there are no roads, you can't drive there. Even if it doesn't matter how good your 4x4 is, when there's a 10-foot gully where a road used to be, no one's driving through it.
Right. Well, and to keep in perspective too, the amount of rain, even the rain that we had this year before this storm, was pretty significant for the region, right? I was reading some reports that it just kind of set up again for, the perfect storm for the region.
Yeah.
One, based on how the weather pattern came into that region, and what you were talking about earlier with the slope of your mountains in that region, and how wind pushes the rain down with such force.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the shop the night before the actual storm hit. The storm was on a Friday. I was here on Thursday, and the rain was already heavy. There was already flooding happening a day before the storm even made it to us.
Wow.
Just because, there had been rain for a long time. The ground was already saturated, and it was kind of just the perfect scenario for this kind of a thing to happen, for the mudslides, for the trees to pull up, lose their hold in the ground and come up in the whole root ball and just fall over. We were lucky. I had a 75-foot hickory tree fall in our backyard that came within 30 feet of the house.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, it took a whole swath of the forest with it, just flattened it out.
So the whole root ball, everything just came up.
Yeah, and it's just the whole thing came up, because the ground around it was too wet, too saturated to hold the roots anymore.
Right.
And nobody knew it was going to be like this.
Yeah. What was the weather, like your local weather stations? What were they reporting 2 days, 3 days before? I mean, just everybody, in some ways, were kind of caught off guard, right?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I think maybe 48 hours in advance, we knew that there was rain coming. But like I said before, it's like people that live in the mountains, we're used to these all these storms getting broken up and deteriorating and not maintaining such force as they make their way up here. I mean, we're pretty good ways inland.
Right.
And especially the path that this hurricane took to come all the way through the Gulf, all the way through all of that land, and to make it to us with that much force it's just not something that happens.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're very familiar with rain here. That's not unusual, but the volume of rain, I mean, I know that I've heard that this is the largest rain event that's ever been recorded for this area ever.
There was a number thrown out. If I remember right, 70 trillion gallons of water fell.
Yeah. Somebody told me it was enough water. There was enough rainfall. If you had, it would cover the entire state of North Carolina in a foot of water or something like that.
Holy shit!
Or more. I mean, it's when you're talking about trillions of gallons of water, it's really hard to put into context. But it was so much water. I mean, I can't remember what the dam was, but I mean, they were saying it was flowing at the rate of Niagara Falls in some of these rivers that are not made for that volume of water.
I've seen pictures of areas, like I've been through Boone, I've camped, not Boone, Asheville, Chimney Rock. I've camped in those areas. Used to spend time there with my aunt and uncle as a kid. My uncle had a trailer home up in Marion, right by Lake James, I think it was, or James Lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, growing up, I remember that. And most of these little, kind of waterfall, I would say, they were sloping streams at best. But I've seen some pictures of places that I was familiar with that, had I not known from a map where they were talking about, it was unrecognizable.
Yeah, I mean, especially places like Chimney Rock. I mean, that town is pretty much gone.
Done.
From what I can tell. And it's like that in a lot of places. In a lot of people's homes. I drive the back road that I drive to the shop most days. There was a house that fell off of the hill and smashed into the road. And we're driving through the debris of this home for 2 days. Before it got cleaned up. It looked like somebody had bombed the place. And it's just insane, the amount of destruction and damage. And there, you couldn't drive a quarter mile without there being another power pole on the ground, or suspended in the air just by the wires, or with a tree on it, or in the whole pole is in the river. Or, there's
and to keep this in perspective, dude, you are an hour and a half from where it really crushed people. I mean, and I'm not trying to take away from what's happened in Boone, by no means, but just to show the power and the enormity of this storm, you're talking about what you're experiencing local, and you're saying you're an hour and a half from the epicenter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's partially just because that steepness didn't allow the water to accumulate in such volume as it did. There weren't places where the water was above people's roofs like it was in Asheville, where people woke up and the water was in their room on the second floor in Asheville, or they have to escape to their roofs. That water moved really quickly, but that same water that was moving quickly and didn't cause the same flood issues did cause roads to completely be dismantled and washed away, homes to completely be dismantled and washed away with people in them. I mean, I've never witnessed any devastation that even comes close to what has happened in this area. And nobody really got out well. I mean, it's not just this county, but the counties on either side of me are just as bad. And it may not be the same volume of water that accumulated in Asheville, but there are numerous lives lost, homes lost, businesses lost, just flattened, gone. I mean, you drive down some of these roads and there are places where a house used to be, and all you can see now is bare dirt.
Wow.
Where even the foundation of the house was, because of how violent the water was and how much it dismantled.
Josh, the only thing I can relate to this, and I'm just sitting here trying to think, man, what is this like? And I forget what year it was, Jake. I think you were with us in
I think it was 2019 or 2018.
Was it the Greenbrier flood?
Yeah, I can check.
Yeah, check. So we were in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, 20-something. Jake will find out in just a sec here. And we got caught in the 100-year flood. We were at the Greenbrier, and we were up on the side of the hill, and one of they call them the estate houses and the hotels down the hill from these houses. And to your point,
2016.
2016. What month and day was that? So what we experienced, Josh, was exactly what you were just talking about. When I went outside, it was pouring down rain, and Kathleen and her friend were actually on a jog, and they actually might be using some of my video here. I captured some drone video. And I think that's our video right there, Jake, that we captured. But anyways, the experience that I had was I walked outside, and I'm looking around. I go, man, it's pouring down rain. It's coming down pretty hard. And off in the distance, I could hear, when you hear a stream and you have that familiar sound of your stream running through your community. This had a gushing sound. I'm like, that is not a stream. What is going on? So I walk a little further, and the golf course had a stream running through it. And that stream at the golf course, Jake, if you can pull it up and show the old Greenbrier, but in comparison, Josh, this stream that was maybe 8 foot wide was now 200 yards wide and a raging Class 5 rapid. And houses were coming down the river.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see, Jacob. There it is at its one of its low
Josh
points
can't
after
see
the
it,
flood.
but
Oh, you can't see that. But this place was completely underwater. And what happened at the Greenbrier was it set between these two big mountains, and all the water just got forced down, and it took houses off their foundation. I think 13 people lost their life, and that was a 100-year flood for the Greenbrier. And in comparison, what's happened in Asheville, I mean, they're thinking by the time this is all over, there's going to be a few hundred plus people who've lost their lives. And the region, realistically, there could be hundreds of thousands of people who are displaced, right?
Easily. And there's no telling how many lives are lost, because lots of people are just missing. A friend of mine came by yesterday that had spent the entirety of his day just looking for a house that used to be on the side of the river, but had been completely picked up and moved. No sign of where stuff had ended up. And there was an elderly couple that was inside that building
Oh my
when it
gosh.
picked up and moved, and nobody has seen them. Nobody's heard from them, and it's hard to say where they will turn up. And that's the case. It's not an isolated case. That's happening all over the place, in Western Carolina as well as Eastern Tennessee. Just over the border, it got hit pretty hard too. There's the main road of 421 that goes in between North Carolina and Tennessee here in this neck of the woods is completely gone, and it will take probably over a year before that pathway of travel is actually open and restored to what it was previous to the storm. It's an unreal. It's hard to fathom how much destruction there really has been, because there are so many parts of this country, in this part of the country, that are tucked away in little hollers and off back roads, and are remote in general, as remote as it can get on the eastern side of the country. And it's been crews of good old boys with 4x4 trucks and chainsaws and water in the bed of the truck that are going and making contact with a lot of these places, because logistically it's hard to cover them all.
The people that we sometimes Americans can make fun of and call them rednecks and call them all kinds of crude names, but when shit goes down and this happens, that's the dudes that you want. Oh yeah, next to you, taking care of business.
Day one, the Friday afternoon after the storm had passed and cleared, and the water was still high, and there were trees every direction that you could go. There was no getting to town outside of the fact that these folks with a lot of tenacity and can-do spirit that aren't going to sit idly on their hands and wait for somebody to save them, are out there making it happen, and clearing the trees off of the road and rebuilding parts of the road, even for people to get to town, to get supplies, to get, there were whole roads that were washed completely away. There's nothing but bare culverts where once there were bridges and, accesses to these people's homes. They're gone. And so these guys are, well, my brother down the road's got a backhoe. Let's get down here and start moving some earth so that these people can get out. You know, we're not going to wait around for somebody else to help us. We're going to help ourselves. And that's something that's very Appalachian to begin with, that mentality, because it's been that way for a long time in Appalachia. The way you get by is by helping each other and being a strong community. And when your neighbor's tree falls over, everybody in the community is over there chopping it up. It's a shared experience with those that have just chosen to make their livelihood and set down roots in their lives here. There's a commonality there that binds us together, that makes us really strong. And even as bad of a situation as this has been, it's been an extremely encouraging thing to me to see people band together in the way that they have.
The human spirit of just communities coming together regardless of faith, politics.
Nobody cares about your politics. It's do you need a bottle of water or a hot shower, or you can come to my place and do your laundry, because I have electricity and water, but it might be 3 weeks before you do, and we'll share it around. I'm done using my generator. Do you want to borrow it? Or, all of those kinds of things that, it's unfortunate that sometimes that it takes a tragedy sometimes to witness or to acknowledge that goodness and potential that's in humanity.
Josh, you're pretty close to, the epicenter, and obviously in Boone, you guys have experienced your your own part of this devastation in Western North Carolina. In your personal experience and then your personal stories that you've heard or seen, how would you say the local, state, and federal response has been thus far?
Well, I know, I mean, the sheriff's department here has been super mobile, doing the best they can.
And your sheriff's department in Boone, that's probably a few dozen deputies, I guess. It's not a big town.
It's not huge,
Yeah.
no. But, you know, the local response has been pretty great. I'd say, I mean, really the initial response, the initial, go in and get people out, get roads cleared, get stuff happening, was majority civilian-led stuff. And it took some time for, the municipality to kind of catch up. And I will say that, the majority of the aid that's coming in has been civilian aid. For every, one National Guard helicopter that you're going to see, you'll see 10 civilian helicopters.
Wow.
For initially. And I know that that's a little, maybe a little bit different in places like Asheville, but there's not nearly as much federal or state presence in Boone, like really at all.
Yeah. Well, we just found out this morning, as we were saying, I don't know if we were able to capture it at the beginning of the podcast, but my son was at the 101st Airborne. Actually, it's only been out less than a year now.
Yeah.
And through the private news network, fuzzy private news network, there's been activation of his old company, Charger Company, which is headed towards Asheville this morning. So, you've got a airborne unit coming, with 500 soldiers, which is much needed, just that alone for the human spirit of people who are in that area to hear and see that coming and that show of force for a community, just having that in and of itself can lift the spirits of people to know, okay, the federal
Most definitely
government.
Help is here, help is on the way.
Yeah.
I think I'm really glad that there are more things being mobilized for this area, because we do desperately need help in Western Carolina. And I think that a lot of people feel a little bit abandoned, honestly, by our government right now, because it's taken almost a week before those forces have been mobilized, while so many are in need, while so many are without power and without food or without contact to the outside world. That's been, when you don't see that initially, and, I think it's been tough. I think that's been something that a lot of people can relate to, is, feeling like the government does not care that much about us out in Appalachia.
Well, I think it's going to really change the landscape. Hopefully it does. Hopefully something good that can come out of this is that citizens will see that the federal government needs to pay more attention to things that are going on at home than what's going on in Ukraine or anywhere else in the world. That it feels really shitty, there's no other word for it, to see billions of your tax dollars go abroad. And then when there's an event like what's happened in Western North Carolina, and even all the way down to Florida. I mean, we can't forget, Florida got the brunt of it right at the very beginning.
It came the whole way through. I mean, and Florida, Georgia, South Carolina.
Right. And to have our next potential president say, in a very condescending way, hey, here's $750.
Right.
Golly, dude, I got all kinds of words I'd love to say this morning, but I'm going to try to keep it civil.
I'm with you. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's the people are like, wow, it's kind of insulting that all you've got is $750, and it's hard to even be said how many people are going to end up with that money.
Right. Oh, and it takes 10 days to
my-
ACH it to your account after applying.
My buddy that works with me here in the shop is just over the border in Tennessee, and his house is still standing, but he's very much so affected. The roads are affected, everything. I mean, there's so many things affected just over the border. But when he tried to apply for any FEMA aid, it said, sorry, your area has not been allocated as a disaster area by the federal government, so we can't do anything. We won't do anything.
Jeez.
And it's literally, within stone's throw of the, North Carolina border, but because it's another state and the bureaucracy that goes into how aid is funneled and distributed, it's just not going where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And, so those people in Trade, Tennessee that are just on the other side of the North Carolina border are, out of luck.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate. And, I mean, people are coming to their aid. Local people, as Boone is an easy hub to bring supplies to. And it has a surplus now that is, steadily being distributed out into the hollers and in the, out, down the little tiny country roads and small communities that are more isolated.
Yeah.
But, it's taking time. And
wow.
I think, yeah.
So,
I don't think anyone here it thinks that the government has done a good job in response to this.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that it does feel like, our government is more concerned with its interests overseas than it is with its own civilian population. And we're kind of, we've been fending for ourselves, and it's great. I hope they do mobilize more things and they bring more aid and they, sure some things up and apply all of that, military tech that our tax dollars is paid for to better people's lives here and save lives here. But it's coming. It's a slow come up. They're not. It wasn't an immediate response. It wasn't.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate that it takes an event like this to really expose that lack of leadership, and hopefully people will respond to that on November 4th and, vote action, vote movement. And, North Carolina, unfortunately, is taking it on the chin. So bringing it back to your community, I want to just make sure that people understand this, that you yourself, your business, you are a quality knife maker, and you're a business owner. And so how many people do you employ, Josh?
We've got 4 employees altogether.
Okay.
It's not a huge operation. But it takes, it's a handful of us out here making stuff happen, making knives full time. This has been my full-time profession really since the pandemic stuff.
Right.
I went full in to making knives and growing my business. And
you were at Winkler before you started your own business, right?
Yeah. Yep. I was at Winkler Knives for a handful of years. That's another, knife manufacturer that's local to this area. And I gained a lot of experience through working there, and, we ended up going our separate ways, but I, continued on, eventually coming back to making knives because it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I have a knack for. And,
we have it up on the screen. You can't see it, but we're showing folks your Instagram page and the quality of
cool.
the material that you're putting
but
out.
Yeah, I mean, I've established a business here in the high country that has a good reputation. We have lots of local distribution. My goal is eventually for everybody in Watauga County to get a knife from me.
That's awesome.
We've been hard after that, and improving not only the quality but the efficiency of our production, especially in the last 2 years as we've been in this facility, which there's another bay on the other side of this wall here that we had just expanded into. I got the keys for 2 days before the storm,
Oh, geez.
which was lucky because all of my equipment that was over here and in harm's way, we pulled out, and that bay for now at least is unaffected by the structural damage in the same way that this shop is. I mean,
How's our local business, like permits and city or county guys? Anybody coming in hassling you about, operating?
oh, not yet.
Well,
I'm sure
we'll try not to put this out in your
Give me
area.
one, yeah. I mean, it'll happen eventually. I mean, the county has their hands so busy right now. There's so many different things to be worrying about, and I'm pretty well on the outskirts of the civilized part of the county. So, it might be a little while. It might be tomorrow. I don't know. Or they come and tell me that I can't be here anymore, but we kind of have to do the best we can with what we got and keep moving forward. That's the only
Right.
option. I've been running this water jet. We've only got 40 hours on the machine. It was a new install as our business is expanding, and now we got to find somewhere else to put it before this building falls on it. And
What do you do for those who don't know knife making? What's a water jet do for you in the knife making?
okay, so it'd be easy just to show you. So here's the water jet cutting machine. It uses water, high pressured water, and an abrasive mix to cut through plates of steel. So we'll start with a sheet of steel, and then it cuts through those sheets, our profiles and skeletonization and everything like that.
That's
Out of
awesome.
a sheet of steel so that we can get our blanks. It was a Foxfire. That's the blank that comes out of those sheets of steel. And so we're cutting that in house. And that's a service that I had been, outsourcing for many years, and just finally, pulled the trigger and bought the machine to do it myself, and then offer the service to other people in the knife industry. And then we get, 2-3 weeks of cutting out of the machine, and then this happens.
Jeez.
And this isn't an easy machine to move. It's the main body of the machine weighs well over 6,000 pounds, so you got to have special equipment to pick it up, to move it, to set it down, to haul it, to unload it. We finally have found somewhere to take it, to get it to safety, but it's taken some doing, especially in a time where communications are affected, where supply chain is affected, where there's so many other needs for those types of heavy equipment to move all kinds. I mean, fix roads and fix telephone poles and fix anything and everything that you can imagine. So it's been pretty tough to orchestrate getting all of this stuff out into safety.
Wow.
But luckily, there's been enough people in the community and also the greater knife community that have supported our efforts in restoring or repairing or saving our equipment. Some of the help has come from hours away down the mountain, but they've seen what's happened, or reached out to me, hey, do you need anything? Would you and are so willing to drop everything that they've had going on to come up here and to help us thwart this tragedy, and do the best we can with what we have.
That's awesome.
And press forward into finding solutions to the problems. And it's been tough. I'm a guy that I like to plan ahead. I'm usually a few months down the road. I try and stay at minimum of 3 months ahead on production, on what things are we making in the shop, what materials do we need, all of these kinds of things. And all of that has come to a grinding halt, and I can't do anything but plan a day at a time. Because that's as much as I have the allowance to affect, is showing up at the shop and what are we going to do today that is the most effective to not only, deal with this problem, but to keep pressing forward and not lose our traction and what we've built in this business,
Yeah.
because it's not just me and my wife and my 3 kids, but it's these other guys, and they're paying their bills and taking care of their families as well. So you can't just stop. You can't. You have to find a way to keep moving forward and keep the money coming in, to cover all of those expenses and to keep people paid and their bills paid. And doing that it's tough. And I mean, we got lucky to have so much support. And a friend of mine who's also a distributor at Ridge Runner Blades. He's a large distributor of our knives. He drove up with a generator on day one and said, "What can we do to help you recover?" And immediately started a GoFundMe.
What is that link? How do we get to the GoFundMe? I've been able to make a contribution myself, but would love to give audience and anybody who cares to.
I mean, if you just search Primitive Woodsman GoFundMe, it should be the first thing that pops up.
We've got it on the page here for you now.
How to send you the link right now, but he started this GoFundMe to cover the cost, the replacement of equipment. I mean, there's still equipment buried in the rubble and the mud in this shop that may never see the light of day again.
Yeah, it will become an archaeological dig for someone 200 years from now, huh?
And there's another grinder like back here somewhere buried in the mud, and this gray bit right here, that is my sandblasting cabinet that got smashed. And,
holy cow!
It's been pretty. I mean, we've lost a lot of stuff, and but we're doing the best we can with what we got, and we managed to pull a lot of stuff out, and save it. But some things are not savable, and so that GoFundMe is gonna help replace lost equipment as well as maintain the wages for everybody that works here, as we're at a halt and no revenue is coming in.
Yeah. And a lot of folks don't understand, Josh, that in many occasions, like what you experienced and so many people in that region experienced, when it's a landslide or when it's a water event, insurance won't cover, even though you may have.
Insurance is not going to cover.
Yeah. So you're on your own. And so if you're out there and you want to support Josh and you want to support folks in the community like that, take a look at the GoFundMe page, Primitive Woodsman's. And then also, more importantly, is, support Josh and his small business efforts. If you're in the market for a knife and a quality knife, I own a few of your knives, your axes. Kathleen uses your kitchen knives every day.
That's awesome.
And they are 100% top-notch quality products. So we're a believer in Primitive Woodsman's. We're here to support you, man. And that's why I just wanted to jump on a podcast with you today to go, hey, how are you doing? Let's get the word out. We're going to, this is going to be a special launch. We'll get this out this weekend so that folks can see and hear and just, on the ground perspective from a small business owner in your region. Can you share with us before we sign off today, what can people at home, Virginia Beach, we're sitting here in our nice communities, all snug and safe and sound. What can we do?
Well, I mean, there's definitely some supply chain issues that are going to be popping up even more so over the next couple of weeks as things unfold. I know that there are people kind of traveling from all different directions that are bringing, goods. And that's a pretty big thing right now. Things like baby formula and, obviously always bottles of water, but medical equipment, things like that. Just basic medicines and things are going to get harder and harder to acquire here.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to bring those things and drop them off at a distribution center, then that's incredibly helpful. There are lots of ways to financially support because, I didn't lose my entire business and all of my stuff, but some people did, and it's going to be a much longer road to recovery. So finding places to donate, financially to help replace wages that are lost and equipment that's lost, and covering costs for repairs in the buildings and that have been flooded or destroyed or are non-existent and that have to be replaced. Those are big, are really helpful things right now.
Yeah.
And
well, we're going to do our best to get the word out for you and to get, community involvement and trying to help you guys. And, I didn't say this earlier, but I think it's important for people to know, for you specifically as a businessman, you went to school there. You went to college in the region at, help me out.
Appalachian State.
Appalachian State. Yeah. Thanks. So
Can you just give me just one quick second? I got a fellow that just walked up here to the shop. I just gotta.
Yeah. Do your thing real quick.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what you get with a live podcast. It's unscripted. Josh has got to deal with contractors right now. Hey, Josh.
Hey,
we're
Kenny.
going to let you go so you can tend to business there, man. I know that's more important.
I got a guy coming and looking at the damage here at the shop. We've been, doing everything we can to figure out what parts can be saved, which may not be a whole lot. I mean, you can see the damage is pretty extensive. There's I don't know if you can see it up here. This I-beam up here is sagging pretty good. There's, a pretty significant amount of structural damage. And insurance isn't covering it, and there's at least for the time being, and we're just trying to figure out how to keep on keeping on. What's the best way to solve the problem? We're just going to put up a wall and forget the rest of the building and rebuild at another date, or what? So we're just looking at all of our options right now as best as we can.
Well, Josh, the bottom line is you, your family, your kids, and your community, everyone there in the Boone, Asheville, Western North Carolina region, you're in our thoughts, our prayers, and if you are listening today and you can financially support efforts there are many sites for you to go to. We'll put some up on the podcast, but specifically if you'd like to help Josh and his local business out, you can go to GoFundMe to the Primitive Woodsman and give what you like to help him get his business up and running again. Support small business. Josh, thanks so much, man, for jumping on with me. I know it wasn't easy and taking time out.
No, it's fine. I appreciate you for having me on, for raising more awareness to what's happening in Western Carolina through this whole tragedy, this natural disaster that we're all kind of dealing with and managing. The more awareness we can bring to what it's like actually here, the problems and issues that we're facing, the more we can get that out, the more likely we are to solve those problems and get the outside help that we need. So I thank you for using your platform to bring that awareness and, push more people our direction as we're trying to, pick up the pieces and rebuild our businesses, our homes, our, existence out here. So
easy day. Thanks, brother. We appreciate you, and best wishes and love to your family.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Y'all have a good one.
You too, brother.
Bye.
Be careful.
BlackBox.